That's all you need to know.
Yeah, really.
Don't go down that alley. I'm gonna go on record here as saying, in regards to Lucha Libre, it's all fake.
What?
Yeah,
I'm
really?
pretty sure it's all fake, and I'm pretty sure that's a well-accepted fact.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, Steve.
Okay, so American WWE/TNA wrestling, people still try to pretend that's real, but the reading that I did, I get the feeling that, people who watch Lucha Libre, they get that it's kind of made up.
Well, of course it is.
Now, okay, so I've gone ahead and I've pissed off sports fans on this entire continent at this point.
Yeah.
I'm sure not many of our listeners are wrestling fans. But, it all makes sense. I mean, if you're going out into the ring, 5 times a week or whatever, and actually really going at it, you can't just do that all the time. You're going to get injured a lot,
Did either of you watch matches for this?
I have seen them before.
Yeah.
I didn't for this.
I was cracking up watching some of the matches where they're all super macho and they're buff and it's so hard, and then one guy smacks into another guy and that guy goes completely flaccid and falls down and then jumps up and is suddenly just energized. It's so hilarious.
Yeah.
One of
for
my
sure.
favorites is one guy's down in the center of the ring and the other guy starts running back and forth, corner to corner, bouncing off the ropes. To
give him time to get his wits about him.
Yeah, I mean, the idea, I think, is that he's building up momentum and speed, when really all he's doing is running back and forth. And then he
he's
falls on
building
top
up
of the guy.
momentum. Yeah. To
It's
fall,
hilarious,
right?
yeah.
To fall. It's not even like you're gonna run.
He's building up static electricity is
Yeah.
what he's doing.
Yeah, probably. And then you see him do the other one with the guys down. And he climbs up on the ropes in the corner and then jumps off on the guy, jumps on top of him, and then just lands next to him. And his arm is actually the only part of it that hits the guy's body.
Yeah.
And it's just totally, the whole thing is just hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Yeah,
It is so much fun to watch, as long as you keep that in mind, because I laugh for a good 15 minutes watching these.
Yeah.
They are so fun.
Yeah.
But that's enough about the little precursor bits. Let's get into our mystery. Are we ready to rumble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wrong sport.
No, right
Sorry.
sport.
Boxing.
Let's get ready to rumble. You're right.
Okay, so Palameke had been wrestling for about 2 decades. He began his career in 1987. At that time, he was under the character or ring name of Alex Dynamo. And then several years later, and of course, mask and costume changes, began wrestling as Pequeño Samurai, which translates to Little Samurai.
Aww. What did his costume look like? A samurai?
You're gonna have to
look it up right now.
I'm gonna tell you
Keep
that
talking,
it doesn't
I'm gonna
look
look it
like a samurai.
Okay,
I'm just gonna tell you, no swords involved. It is wrestling.
Oh, that's too bad.
He then again later, several years later, changed his outfit again and his persona, and in 1992 became Winners. That's the character's name, Winners. At which point he actually enjoyed a lot of success.
Yeah, he did. He improved. That name, Winners, it's just not ominous enough sounding.
Okay, so there's this funny thing in Lucha Libre where there's Rudios, which are the rude boys, that's your bad guys, and then there's the good guys. And the Rudios always have these kind of sinister names, and the good guys have these very simple, clean, pure names.
I see.
And so Winners, or Winner, depending on how you see it written, he was a good guy, so it's kind of that clean, pure name. So that's why I believe that's why it was only Winner instead of the Olympic champion Winners or something crazy like that.
And then he went over to the dark side and became a Abismo Negro.
He did eventually do that. But here's something that we got to point out about the wrestling sport itself, which is things are done with luchadors. There are leagues or federations, and people might be sort of familiar with this with other sports. You see the majors and the minors and the semi-pro leagues and all this stuff. The thing about the Lucha Libre is that there are these leagues or federations, whatever you want to call them, that all operate at the same level independent of one another. So there are, we actually mentioned this briefly earlier, in the U.S. there is the WWE, the World Wrestling Entertainment.
Formerly WWF.
formerly WWF, and there is also TNA, Total Nonstop Action.
Which I never heard of before, this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard of it for years, but I always thought it was part of TNT, the TV channel.
Yeah.
But it's not. But these are two leagues that are on the same level, but they are completely autonomous of one another.
Yeah, their wrestlers don't cross over and wrestle their guys.
And if
other
they
guys.
do, they full on leave one side and begin to operate inside the circles of the other. They don't go back and forth.
There's no crossover. Now, so they wear the luchador masks and the costumes and all of that stuff. Is it publicized who's behind that mask, or is it just, when they're talking about the fights, are they saying, this person is this person, or are they just saying, and it's this person?
They always refer, at least in my experience, and again, I don't know a lot of Spanish. I don't watch a lot, so I can't give good firsthand knowledge of this. But what I understand is everybody kind of knows who's behind the mask. But when the mask is on,
it doesn't matter.
That is the character, and that is who you talk about.
Okay.
You don't say, and Bob Jones playing the whatever.
Oh, of course not,
that's not the way it goes.
Right.
It's his character,
Right.
It's like watching a play.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, as an example, in the WWF when I was a kid, so there was Hulk Hogan. Everybody knew who Hulk Hogan was. Well, that's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
But then there's Jake the Snake. Well, Jake's last name was not Snake. His
What?
character was Jake the Snake. He had a last name. His first name happened to be Jake, but they never said Jake the Snake, a.k.a. whatever his full name
What
was.
about The Undertaker?
That was not his real name.
That's not his legal name?
No.
Oh, man.
No.
Good
I
name.
have some apology letters to write.
You
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
We are way off track.
Yeah.
Okay,
Get
so
back on it.
we were talking about the leagues.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about. Okay, so Palameke was originally, he was wrestling under, it's commonly the abbreviation in English is CMLL, which is Consejo Mundial de Lucha Libre, which is Spanish for World Wrestling Council. And that was when he was under the characters of Alex Dynamo and Pequeño Samurai. And then after 1992, he went over to what you see commonly referred to as AAA Promotions, which I'm actually not going to try and say this one in Spanish because I know I'll butcher it really badly. Which in Spanish translated to English, it is Assistance, Counseling, and Administration Promotions, which is why everybody calls it AAA, because it
Makes sense.
sounds much sexier that way. But when he was, when Palamoke was at AAA, that's when he started his winners, and he had a lot of success with them. And then in 1997, he changed from one of the good guys to the bad guys. He changed his character, and that's when he became Abismo Negro.
Which is the Black Abyss, which we haven't actually said yet, I don't think.
It is absolutely correct. We have
Okay.
not said that.
Wanna make sure.
The
Kind of a
direct
cool name.
translation. So this is the funny thing. Joe and I chatted about this a little bit earlier. The direct translation in English is Abyss Black, but it is properly translated Black Abyss.
Yeah, it's one of those nuances of translation.
It is, and it plays a bit of a role later on as we go through things. But he had a lot of success. Like I said, he did that. He made that transition in 1997. He was one of their top wrestlers at AAA. In 2004, he was good enough that he actually got into an exchange program with TNA here in the U.S., and he, for a year, wrestled in matches in the States.
With the luchador mask and stuff?
With the mask and
That's
everything.
crazy. Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Before he eventually went back. And it's funny, I watched some of those matches, and it's kind of terrible, and shame on TNA for doing this a little bit. I mean, he knows English, but he plays totally dumb, like he doesn't know English, and they play that up. It's a weird stereotype thing. It was awkward. Still totally hilarious to watch him running around, smacking guys in the face. But yeah, it was a little strange.
Well, wrestling is a little strange.
Yeah, the whole thing's a little
Strange to me is why people watch that, but hey.
If the people who watch it and take it seriously is what I don't get. But again, I have made all those people angry once, so we're not going to keep doing that.
Okay.
let's move forward. So after he goes to the States. He's on the TNA matches for a year. He starts to hit what I would call a rough patch. Starts missing matches on a relatively regular basis, and based on the reading that I've done, he generally starts to be considered unreliable, as in not showing up for matches.
And that's kind of a bummer.
Good. Yeah, it's too bad.
Hundreds of thousands of people show up for a 4-match night, and one of the guys doesn't show. They just paid for a 3-match night, and they're not happy.
Well, but so here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they wear a costume and a mask.
Somebody just
the
swap in
full-face mask. Is there no option, for there to just have somebody else go on as him?
I think that might have been done a few times.
So there is ways that happens. There are some negative repercussions that come about from that. We're going to talk about some of them.
Personally, or
both for
publicly?
the reputation of the character, as well as the organizer of the event, depending upon how they go about it.
Okay.
We can just jump to this. There's a bit where somebody goes on stage pretending to be our wrestler, our luchador here, and it is not actually him, and they bill it as him and don't make any mention that they have a fill-in pretending. And when it comes out what happened, that promoter gets banned for 2 years.
Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, so it's possible. I know exactly where you're heading with that, but it's
considered bad for him.
It's terrible for him. Yeah. So the problem is he's missing these matches because according to the rumors that were floating about, and this is for a good number of years, he really likes some drugs. He especially seems to have been fond of cocaine.
A lot of people are.
A lot of people do like cocaine, to the length that he is reported to have wrestled for drugs, as well as possibly have done it in the locker room, in the open, with other wrestlers.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Maybe this sounds like rude, but don't you kind of think you'd want to be high if you were doing this for a living? If you're gonna go fake a fight, don't you think maybe you want to get high before that?
I can't believe I'm about to do this, but I'm gonna defend wrestling in a way that I never thought I was gonna do.
Yes, that was my goal.
Okay, so let's think about this. A match is choreographed. You go to the ballet, and these dancers have trained, and they know their steps and their routines, and where they're supposed to be, where their marks are on stage the entire time as they're moving about rapidly with up to, I don't know how many of them are on stage, but a bunch of people. Okay, now let's think about that from the point of a wrestler. There are 2 of you. You are choreographed to do very specific things, which are feats of athleticism. The last thing you want is the other dude high as a kite and missing his mark and bringing his elbow down not on the mat next to your head, but on your throat. There's a lot of choreography and actual skill involved. I get that wrestling is a joke, but there's a ton of skill involved that to look real.
But if you toot a few lines before the match, it won't necessarily make you less sharp.
2 points. 1, you used a ballerina, which was maybe a bad example because I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but a lot of ballerinas do cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of them.
Do they?
Almost all of them.
I understand that.
Please don't send me angry emails.
So luchadors and tutus, got
Sure.
it.
Yeah, that's been a thing. But I guess point 2 is I don't know the history well enough to know, maybe he was actually a serious wrestler and hated the fact that he sold out, and so he wanted to get high so he wasn't so embarrassed by it.
I don't think that you can get into the sport. I mean, he started in the sport at 14.
Yeah.
He started professionally. I mean, his debut, he was a 16-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
So he, at this point, in the story, when he dies, he's almost a 40-year-old man. He's been doing it for years. If he had a problem with it,
he would have gotten out of it.
He would have. It would have been very obvious many, many years ago.
Mostly, I don't know why I'm even bringing this stuff up, because I feel like it's just not an issue that he was doing cocaine. I mean, obviously it's an issue that anybody's doing cocaine, but
But
there's a certain level of physical control that you have to pull off some of these things. I mean, you see these crazy flying moves that these guys do, and if you are blitzed in any way,
Well, it's not heroin. I mean,
but if you are not in your most soberest state of mind, bad things can happen.
can.
Maybe.
So that's why I say that.
Okay.
But the point is, he
did drugs.
he's apparently liked his drugs. And like I said, to put all the drugs on the table, he liked to do coke. And it is also rumored that, as a lot of guys at the time and previous to him were doing, he was also on anabolic steroids.
And now, is that proven that he was on steroids?
It's
or
not.
Just suspected?
No. Thank you, Joe. It is very highly suspected, but there is nothing that I have found that says definitively he was on steroids. Palameke evidently knew, or somebody around him knew that there was a problem, because he apparently went into rehab several times. And I also am under the understanding that AAA banned him a couple of times. Maybe not officially, but he would come and go in the scene.
Well, if you're missing matches, obviously they're going to do something to you.
Yeah,
I think it was probably something in the order of, go away, go into rehab, get yourself cleaned up, and then come back someday whenever you,
Right,
got
and so then
yourself
they would,
together.
the process, the cycle would start again, and then things would go bad and they'd kick him out. Now, AAA, they were trying to figure out what to do, because his character was pretty popular, and they needed a Rudio in that.
He was still winners at that time, right?
No, he was.
Was he already at Bismo Negro?
He was a Bismo Negro at this point, because he had gone to that character in 1997.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So this character is really, fans loved him because he did this weird thing. He loved to bring out a lighter and a can of hairspray or something like that. He was doing the flamethrower, walking down through a crowd of people with fire. Like, people loved this crap. So he was very popular. AAA is trying to figure out what they're going to do, because their very popular Rudio is suddenly super unreliable. And what do? They go ahead and they introduce a new Rudio, who is Black Abyss.
In English, right?
In English. Very similar costume. If they pitch these guys against each other as a gimmick several times, and you watch it. I had a hard time keeping straight who was who. I had to dial the video back to look at the colors of who did what, because the costumes are so similar. But they did this as a way of, well, if you kind of screw it up, we're gonna kick you out, and we're just gonna replace you with Black Abyss. So, get your stuff together, man.
Yeah.
It's funny, but it didn't seem to fix the problem. So let's move to the last days of Palameke's life. In 2009, Palameke took part in the King of Kings event, which was in Guadalajara, and that happened on either the 14th or the 15th of March is when it began. I had a hard time pinning down the exact date, but I think that's because the reporting is based on matches and not the event itself. But the point is, he was eliminated in the first round. He is then known to have been wrestling at an event in Mazatlan on the 16th of March, and he was subsequently supposed to be at a match on the 21st at another city in Mexico, and he no-showed that event.
The 21st?
The 21st event. He was at the one on the 16th and then didn't show for the one 5 days later on the 21st.
Maybe he forgot.
No.
Maybe he was,
Hi.
Yeah, because it's rumored that he stayed in Mazatlan and he went on a coke bender for at least 5 days, until which point he ran out of money. And this, by the way, I don't know this for sure. I want to put that out there. This is based on the reporting that is done. His family has never said this, and we don't have a real clear accounting of his actions during that time from the match on the 16th forward.
Okay.
So we don't know this for sure. This is strongly believed, but not 100% proven. He's either supposed to be on the 21st, he was either supposed to be in Monterey or in Cancun. I don't know which one, but instead what he does is he leaves Mazatlan and he heads home on a bus to Mexico City. So goes in the wrong direction entirely.
Yeah.
Like he just blows off the match. He wants to go home. To get home, like I said, he got on a bus. And this is another bit of weirdness in the reporting, which is he got on the bus either on Friday the 20th or Saturday the 21st. And here's why I think it's weird is that the bus left at 12:30 in the morning. So my impression is that the bus probably actually left on Saturday morning at 12:30 a.m.
Probably.
But the way it's reported, you'll see it said that he got on a bus on Friday and blah, 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 blah.
Well, maybe it was Friday when he got on the bus.
Well, he certainly probably showed up at the bus station on Friday.
No,
Yeah.
you guys are both right. But you will also see it said definitively that he got on a bus that left at this time, and he got on, and it was his Saturday was the day that the bus departed town.
Well,
Like it's weirdness, but I'm pretty sure that
It's just
it was
lazy
the
reporting.
morning hours of Saturday.
Yeah.
We got on Friday night.
It's okay.
It's
not
weird, but
Yeah.
about an hour into the trip, so this is about 1:30 a.m., Palameke, reportedly he became agitated. You see this described as having a nervous breakdown. It was to the point that he got up, he went to the driver, and he made the driver of the bus stop the bus, and he got off the bus on the edge of the highway. Now, this happens near the town of El Rosario. The bus driver evidently must have reported this to his superiors because
And,
they knew where they dropped him off.
How far is El Rosario from Mazatlan?
It's miles. It's not hundreds. It's more like a dozen, maybe 24 miles away
Oh.
at the very most.
Well,
I would say it's
slow
actually.
bus.
What's that?
That's a slow bus.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Mazatlan to El Rosario, it was an hour drive, which means
Oh,
it
okay.
must have been about 50 miles.
Okay.
I apologize. No, I was thinking of the bus stopped outside, north of the town of El Rosario, based on what I figured out.
Okay.
That's where I was getting that mixed up. So it's about an hour away, about
All right.
60, 50 miles.
So he's agitated. He gets off the bus.
Yep, and he walks away from the bus and shortly thereafter texts his wife and says something to the effect of, he's lost in the dark in the hills.
Mm-hmm.
She, fearing for, him, what's going on, she contacts a promoter that they know who's in Mazatlan to, get a search party and go look for him. That search party, I have to presume, didn't start that night, but probably started the next morning. They went around town. They showed his picture around. Nobody recognized him, at which point they began to search outside of the town. The searchers found Palameke's body.
And I believe it wasn't just these private parties. It was by this time the police also. Right?
Yes, the police were involved, yes. I mean, this is just people looking for him, I guess is what I meant, is they started the search party in general. I excluded the police, that's my bad. They go looking for him. Sunday, March 22nd, they find his body face down under a bridge in a body of water. Like I said,
A very small body of water.
very small body of water. It's the dry season. It's one of those bridges, you may have seen this before, it's a concrete bridge, and there is a river, and concrete walls have been built up on either side of the bank of the river vertically, and then the bridge sits on top of those. So it makes kind of a channel.
Yeah.
And the center between the concrete creates a divot. That's where the body of water was, almost directly under the bridge, and that's where his body was found floating.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird. Again, it's one of the few places where the water could have accumulated. Now, I in the reading, they never say specifically where it is.
Did they find a smiley face drawn anywhere near the body?
Not that I ever saw. But it's entirely
too
possible
old.
that it
He was
may
too
have been
old.
That's true.
cut
He
out.
wasn't,
No, he was too old.
he wasn't in college either. That's right.
yeah.
Okay, sorry. My bad.
He may have been in the Lucha Libre fraternity.
Probably not, though.
Now, as I said before, though, we don't know exactly. The reporting doesn't specify where the bridge is. The This is a failing. I reported this, by the way. This is a failing on the part of Google Translate. There appears to be in the town of El Rosario a citrus company, and according to the translated text, it is a bridge that is citrus company tall. So I reported that issue, but it appears to be several miles north of the town. On the 15 Mazatlan-Tepic highway is where he was found. He was found in the report. Again, this is the weird part. The reporting says that the body was found in the Belhuarte River, which actually is south of the town. And if you look at it on satellite, there's these really big bridges with big pillars, and nothing matches the crime scene photos. There is, however, a small stream that flows into the Belhuarte that starts north of the town. It's really weird if you have to follow the freeway to figure out exactly where his body is. The point is, he's found in the river. I know I took that way too far, but
So he's found in the creek, not the river.
It's a creek. He's found in a depression in the ground that's full of water. Initially, the official cause of death is nervous breakdown caused by steroids, and that nervous breakdown is what caused him to fall in the water and get stuck in the mud, and because he was unable to pull himself out of the mud, drown.
I mean, I have problems with that, but I also,
I have huge problems with that, but yes.
But
Drowning
also,
is the official COD, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happens when you're having a nervous breakdown. I mean...
We're going to get into this.
We will.
We're going to get into this
That's why
much more. I know, I understand.
More.
So let me finish this we got just a last little bit here, and then we'll get into theories. There is an autopsy performed apparently on the body, but once they figure out that, there's water in his lungs, they stop doing anything else because they figured out why he died. They don't ever try to figure out what caused his mental breakdown.
So they stopped the autopsy when they found the water. They didn't check his heart to see if he had a heart attack or anything like that. Or
nothing is reported along those lines. Nothing says that. And here's the problem: is that the like I said in the beginning, the initial the medical examiner's like, well, he was obviously on steroids, and that's the problem, and that's what caused all of this. And oh, look, I found water in his lungs, and I'm done. At which point, kind of similarly to what we talked about in the Cobain case, body is turned over to the family. The family has the body cremated in a matter of days after the fact, and we have no records of what was discovered or how much investigation they actually did during that autopsy.
I find it hard to believe that they would just say, "Oh, water in the lungs, we're done. No, we're not going to do anything else. That's it. No, everybody pack it up." That seems odd to me. It's possible that that's all they reported, but I can't imagine.
In a small town in rural Mexico, it could be that I don't have the time or the funding to do a whole lot. Look, I found water in the lungs. I get to sign off and say this is what happened and get my 5 minutes in the sun. The news loves me. I pronounced Abismo Negro died of drowning.
Yeah, but was that guy, you said it was a small town, was he actually a forensic pathologist, or was he perhaps just a regular doctor who was contracted to...
He was the local medical examiner.
Oh, so it was then. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know, a local... Does that mean that it's a 100-mile radius area? I don't know how big of a range he covered. I couldn't find that.
Yeah.
Because this is one of those weird, it's kind of an area where there's not a whole lot of information available.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how big of a spread he covered.
All right.
There's one last thing, which I know we actually talked about this just a little bit ago, which is the 21st of March, which was a Saturday. Abismo Negro should have been there at a match. And
in Cancun, right?
Yeah, and he was. He was wrestling.
Yeah.
He wrestled that night, and the crowd loved it. He was
Even
there.
though he was already dead.
Even though apparently he was either already dead or
having
depending
a
on
mental breakdown on a train or
on a bus.
Yeah.
So this is the part I talked about where it was found out later on that somebody had dressed up in an outfit looking like him and took to the ring. Now, Black Abyss, the character whose name is in English, had been known he wouldn't show up, except Black Abyss was at a match somewhere else.
as Black Abyss.
So
As Black Abyss.
So somebody else had to come in there. and do Abis Monegro.
Right, and they didn't say anything, and it came out, and it was a huge egg on the face situation. But that's one of those things that people use as a conspiracy line of, well, obviously they knew that something was going to happen to him, and they'd booked somebody else to come in as him ahead of time. Somebody had given him wind that this thing was going to go down.
Maybe.
This is one of those things that you see happen.
Something's wrong.
Well, maybe they got wind that he was on a 5-day coke bender, and they decided they were going to need a replacement, most likely.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely possible. Well, let's go ahead, and that's the end of the story. Let's move right into